Hey guys, it's Melanie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make this pillow, and this pillow has piping, it's an envelope pillow enclosure, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this project. So let's get going. I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, here is what we need. We need our piping fabric, our cording to fill our piping for that edge. We need a zipper foot, a bunch of pins, a rotary blade, and then our main fabric. I already have cut mine, and so in the description box I'll have the details of all of the different types of measurements that you will need. So these are the back two panels, and what we need to do is finish this edge, these seams where we'll have the envelope opening. So what you want to do is fold over about 1/4 of an inch, and then fold it over again about another 1/4 of an inch, and sew that into place. So we're going to do that for both of these back panels. So take that over to the sewing machine using a coordinating thread, sew that down, and again on both of those panels. Okay, now that we're done with that, we are going to be doing our bias piping. So we need to cut some strips on the bias. Now this is a 1/2 yard of fabric, and what we're going to do is have some straight edges there that I've already cut, and we're going to take this selvage edge and fold it diagonally so that that selvage edge lines up with that straight line that we have. There it is, all lined up. And so that diagonal is going to be the 45-degree angle that is the bias. So you can just take a ruler and an erasable pen and draw on that and then just make cuts from there, but I'm going to show you how I like to cut bias strips. So fold that in half, and then what you're going to do is fold that bias side, that diagonal line, on top of itself like this, and then I'm going to fold it over again. So we're going to fold it on itself, keeping those folds together, and fold it over again. Now you can do straight grain binding for this project, but really bias binding is better for the piping. It just allows a lot more stretch for getting around those corners, and it lays much nicer. So what we're going to do is cut those folds, and then we are going to flip it over, and see, here we have our 90-degree angle, and we're going to cut a 2-inch strip. So we're going to cut our strip here. If you need some tips on cutting yardage, I'll link my video that shows you all the details on cutting yardage. Basically, you just want to make sure that that black line from the ruler is straight across the bottom. And here you can see the stretch of that bias strip. So we're going to cut a couple of strip sets. There's a few of them that come out of each cut, and we need about 6 of them. They're all different sizes, so it depends on which pillow size you're doing. And then this is how it looks if you were going to open up that 1/2 yard of fabric. That's kind of how it's looking. Now what we need to do with those bias strips is to cut the ends blunt. We don't want a diagonal end, we want a straight end. So we're going to do that on all of the bias strips. Now it's also a good idea to do a bias join. So what we want to do is put the right sides together. I know it's kind of hard to tell on this purple fabric, but right sides together, especially if you have a print. And then you are going to go from outer corner to outer corner with a water-soluble pen and a nice ruler, and then you're going to pin that into place. You're going to do this for all of the joins for the different bias strips that you have, and then you're going to sew directly down that line. And then this is how it should be looking on the other side. It just allows that bias stretch to give a little bit more. Take it to your iron and iron the seam open, and then trim a nice good seam allowance. Again, in the description box below the video will be a lot of measurements and those kind of details for your specific pillow size. I'll have a bunch of different ones in there. So now we're going to be making our piping. So we're going to insert the cording into our 2-inch bias strip. We're going to fold over that end so that we have a nice neat way to attach that all the way around when we do the pillow. But first we need to make this piping. So what we want to do is, using our zipper foot, get really, really close to that cording inside the strip of fabric. So you can see how I'm doing it here. I'm using a thread so that you can see my stitching, but generally you would want to use a thread that matches your fabric. So here we go. Keep it as close as you possibly can. Here's a couple different angles so that you can see how it should be looking. And pins help out a lot, and then you can just use your fingers to help guide you too. So there's the ending. That's how it should look at the end. And now what we want to do is attach this piping to the square piece of fabric, of our main fabric, so that front panel. When we get around to the corners, you got to clip those sides to make sure that we can get all the way around the corner. Make sure that you're attaching the raw edges to the raw edges and pin everything in place. Pinning this part in place will be really helpful then when you go to sew all of this down. The corners can be a little bit finicky, so just take your time and make sure that everything is laying flat. It will look like it's bunching a little bit, but then when it's flipped open, that will get smoothed out. So now we're back around to the beginning, and what we want to do is trim our piping so that it will match up, and then that folded edge can come right over the top there. We can sew that down nicely. So pin that all in place, and then we're going to be taking this over to, ooh, there's our finished front. That's our pillow front. So we're attaching the piping just to the front right now, and we're going to attach it using the zipper foot just like we made the piping before, keeping it as close to that cording as we possibly can with that same thread. It should be that coordinating thread color, and we're going to be going all the way around doing this, staying as close to it as possible using that zipper foot. Trust your zipper foot and trust your feed dogs and let your machine help you. And when you get to the corners, you want to go nice and slow. Don't be afraid to maneuver it a little bit, start and stop, lift up your presser foot if you need to make little adjustments, because you want to make sure there's not any bunching or any fabric kind of curling underneath anything. So it's best to just go real slow over this part. That way you get a nice finished result. All right, nice and slow around those corners, and then here we are, a slightly different angle so that you can see what I'm doing here once you get back around to the beginning. Back stitch, and back stitch at the beginning too, if I didn't mention that. And then we are going to be ready to put our back panels on. We are so close to being done. So put your back panels, raw edges lining up together with those seams in the center of your pillow, like so, and then we're going to pin all the way around. So here I am pinning, and I'm pinning along where that piping is, because when we sew it all down, we're going to be kind of following that line, just like we did before. And when you come to those openings where those seams are, you want to back stitch and make sure that those are nice and secure. Now your seam allowance should be between 1/2 inch and 5/8 of an inch. If that's not matching up, then you might want to just double check your work. But if it looks close to this, you should be fine. So same thing, go real slow around those corners, make sure everything is in there properly, there's nothing bunching, and then when you get to those openings, those extra seams, back stitch really well, because that's where it's going to have a little bit of wear when you're opening it and closing it and taking that pillow form out when you need to wash it. I also want to mention I did pre-wash this fabric, so I pre-washed it and ironed it before I cut it and got ready to go with it. Alright, that's it. What did you think of this project? If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below, and be sure to check the description box. I will have tons of measurements in there. A lot of people have trouble finding the description box, so if you are on a desktop machine, click on Show More underneath the video and the description box will open up. I'll have links, I'll have measurements, I'll have all sorts of stuff down there for you. If you're on a mobile device, you can click the little gray arrow to the right of the title of the video, and that will open up the same description box and have everything linkable. I love to see what you guys make with my tutorials, so if you make a project with any of my tutorials, and especially this pillow, tag me on Instagram at Melanie K. Ham, or my Facebook page. You can upload pictures there so I can see what you guys are making. So be sure to tag me. I love to see what you guys are making, and I even like to feature you guys sometimes on my social media channels. So be sure to let me know what you guys are working on. Don't forget to subscribe and thumbs up and all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.